You know what's wild? Your brain avoids hard work, even when it knows that's exactly what will change your life. You feel it every day. The pull toward comfort, distraction, the I'll start tomorrow mindset that slowly eats away at your productivity and mental focus.
I'll
Deep down,
start
you already know this isn't
tomorrow.
about laziness or lack of discipline. It's chemical. Your dopamine system is wired to chase what feels good now, even if it sabotages personal growth later. So here's the uncomfortable question. How do you get your brain to crave effort instead of comfort? Think about this. How many times have you planned to read, train, or build something meaningful, only to end up scrolling, zoning out, or procrastinating instead? How often does your time management collapse the moment your phone lights up? That gap between intention and action isn't willpower, it's a reward mismatch in your mindset. Your brain is pursuing tiny emotional wins over real progress, and most people never learn how to flip that switch. They stay stuck fighting themselves every single day. What if you didn't have to fight your brain at all? What if you could train it systematically to enjoy self development, to seek challenge, to associate discipline with emotional reward? That's exactly what you're about to learn. These 7 dopamine hacks aren't theory, they're practical. They rewire what your brain wants so that effort finally feels satisfying, not forced. Stay with this, because the shift from resistance to momentum happens faster than most people ever imagine. When you think about dopamine, you probably link it to pleasure, but that's the first mental trap. Dopamine isn't what makes you feel good, it's what makes you want something in the first place. It's the engine behind your self development, your productivity, and the invisible pull that decides whether your mindset leans toward growth or distraction. Every time you feel that urge to check your phone, start a new goal, or chase improvement, that's dopamine lighting the match. It doesn't care if what you chase leads to personal growth or personal stagnation, it only responds to desire. This explains why discipline often feels inconsistent. You don't lack willpower. Your brain is chemically negotiating what deserves your attention. Dopamine flags anything that promises fast emotional relief: notifications, scrolling, easy entertainment, quick validation. That's why maintaining mental focus and time management becomes harder exactly when tasks demand deep effort. Your brain isn't asking, is this important? It's asking, is this rewarding right now? And without awareness, immediate comfort quietly beats long term purpose every time. The breakthrough for how to live better happens when you realize motivation isn't something you wait for, it's something you train chemically. When dopamine gets wired to meaningful rewards, effort stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like progress. Reading books like Deep Work or Man's Search for Meaning, hitting the gym 5 days a week, or building a daily learning habit begins to reinforce discipline naturally. You don't force consistency. You teach your dopamine system to associate struggle with satisfaction. That's how mindset shifts from resistance to momentum. Once you see dopamine as the chemistry of desire rather than pleasure, something bigger clicks into place. You stop blaming yourself for inconsistency and start designing your behavior intentionally. Mental focus strengthens when your brain learns to reward action instead of escape. But here's the deeper question you can't ignore. What happens when desire itself becomes overstimulated, when the dopamine system is pushed beyond its natural limits? The answer doesn't come from theory. It comes from some unsettling experiments that showed exactly how motivation can collapse when dopamine is hijacked. When scientists tried to isolate what truly fuels motivation, they uncovered something surprising. Without dopamine, action shuts down completely. And you've probably felt this firsthand. That strange state where you want something but can't find the energy to start. That's not laziness. It's a neurochemical stall. No dopamine spike, no movement. You can have the best plans for self development, a clear productivity roadmap, even powerful goals. None of it matters if the drive system sits offline. Desire isn't philosophical, it's biological. Then comes the opposite extreme. What happens when dopamine is overstimulated? Experiments and real world observations both paint the same picture. When the brain gets hooked on ultra fast rewards, motivation narrows into obsession. You see this in binge scrolling, gaming loops, endless content hopping, or compulsive achievement chasing. The brain locks into pressing the reward button again and again, neglecting real needs like rest, reflection, or even long term growth. Discipline collapses under the weight of micro-pleasures, and mindset starts orbiting comfort instead of construction. This explains a paradox in modern time management. You're busier than ever, yet often less fulfilled. Dopamine floods your system with stimulation, but leaves your personal growth starved. You jump between tasks, messages, side projects, and screens, always active, rarely focused. Mental focus fragments because dopamine rewards movement, not meaning. To the brain, constant novelty feels productive, even when nothing actually compounds into skill, mastery, or progress. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. Too little dopamine kills initiative, but too much dopamine kills direction. Both extremes steal productivity in different ways. Without balance, discipline dies, either through apathy or through addiction to noise. And the moment you grasp this double edge, a deeper realization forms. The issue isn't motivation alone, it's tolerance. As dopamine keeps getting overstimulated, your brain slowly becomes numb to reward itself. And that's exactly where the next problem begins. Your brain is built for balance, always chasing homeostasis, that invisible equilibrium between stimulation and stability. The problem starts when modern life floods your dopamine system with instant rewards faster than your nervous system can recalibrate. Endless scrolling, autoplay videos, gaming loops, sugar spikes, all of it trains your brain to expect fireworks instead of candles. Over time, your neural receptors turn the volume down just to survive the noise. And suddenly, what used to fuel your self-development barely moves the needle anymore. That's when tolerance sets in. You need more stimulation just to feel the same spark of motivation. Productivity tasks like studying, building skills, reading, or even working out now feel heavy and dull by comparison. Not because they lost value, but because your reward circuitry got used to louder signals. Mental focus becomes fragile, discipline feels forced, and mindset quietly shifts. Hard work starts looking boring while distraction looks irresistible. Your baseline for reward has been hijacked upward. This is why time management advice alone often fails. You can optimize schedules, set goals, and download productivity apps all day. None of it sticks if your dopamine threshold is blown out. It's like trying to enjoy acoustic music after standing next to speakers at a concert. You won't hear the subtle notes anymore. The solution isn't adding more stimulation, it's retraining your reward sensitivity. Simple pleasures must regain emotional weight if personal growth is ever going to feel emotionally satisfying again. Once you understand tolerance, your struggle stops feeling personal and starts feeling physiological. You're not broken, you're overstimulated. Mental focus begins to recover the moment intensity drops, but the bigger question becomes, can you reset your brain's reward system without disappearing from modern life completely? Is there a way to recalibrate dopamine without becoming some monk in isolation? That's exactly where the idea of a dopamine detox enters, and why it may be the doorway back to real motivation. A dopamine detox isn't about punishment, it's about recalibration. You're not trying to kill pleasure, you're trying to restore sensitivity to it. When overstimulation fades, simple rewards begin to feel meaningful again. Mental focus slowly comes back online. The small wins that once fueled self-development, learning, training, building skills, start triggering satisfaction instead of boredom. It's like cleaning a dirty lens. Reality hasn't changed, but now you can finally see it clearly again. Some people choose a full reset, a radical detox day with no social media, no streaming, no junk food, no endless scrolling. Just boredom, silence, maybe a walk, reading, journaling, or focused work. At first, your brain panics. Withdrawal whispers that everything is dull. But after a few hours, something shifts. Productivity tasks suddenly don't feel so heavy. A book becomes interesting again. Your capacity for sustained attention quietly returns. Others succeed with a lighter strategy. What truly matters is consistency, not extremism. One dopamine-free day per week, no social media on Sundays, or phone-free mornings all produce real results for mindset and personal growth. Even simple swaps help, replacing nighttime scrolling with journaling, stretching, or reading something purposeful like deep work or The War of Art. Over time, these rituals reteach your dopamine system that effort equals emotional reward. But there's a trap here. almost no one talks about. Detox alone doesn't create discipline. Resetting dopamine only clears the stage. It doesn't teach the brain what deserves the spotlight next. Without structure, most people just reload the same old habits once stimulation returns. That's where everything changes, because the real solution isn't deprivation, it's a reward system designed to make hard work irresistible. Here's the rule almost nobody lives by: work comes first, reward comes after. Your brain learns through sequence, not intention. When you reward yourself before effort, scrolling first, coffee breaks without progress, entertainment before action, dopamine reinforces avoidance instead of discipline. Over time, productivity collapses because the chemical feedback loop trains your nervous system to expect pleasure without contribution. Mental focus fades, and your mindset subtly drifts toward shortcuts instead of growth. The fix is surprisingly mechanical. You anchor pleasure to progress. 1 hour of deep work earns 15 minutes of guilt-free leisure. A completed workout unlocks your favorite music or podcast. Finishing a reading session or writing block earns a coffee break or a walk. This may sound simple, but it's neurochemical training. You're teaching your dopamine system to associate effort with emotional payoff. That's where self-development becomes sustainable, not exhausting. Time management stops being about squeezing more into the day and starts being about sequencing your brain's chemistry. Your hardest task should always sit before your biggest reward. That means no checking messages before writing, no social media before study, and no streaming before skill-building sessions. Over weeks, discipline stops feeling forced because the brain no longer fights boredom. It anticipates earned relief. Applied consistently, this system wires personal growth directly into emotional satisfaction. But structured rewards alone don't solve the biggest obstacle most people face: the emotional wall of starting. That first friction point, when resistance kicks in before motion begins, can overpower even the best systems. Which raises the next question: how do you bypass the start barrier that stops productivity before it ever gets moving? That's exactly where simple mental tricks come into play. Ways to outsmart the brain's ancient wiring and slip past its defenses. Hack number 1 is gamification, turning your goals into visible progression. You stop seeing work as endless suffering and start seeing it as levels to beat. Use checklists, streak trackers, or apps like Habitica to create points and visual wins. Hack number 2 is the 2-minute rule. Commit to starting any task for only 2 minutes. Action melts resistance faster than motivation ever could. Hack number 3 is immediate micro rewards. Finishing a writing block earns a walk, a coffee, or a favorite playlist. Your brain learns that effort equals emotional payoff. Hack number 4 is tribal accountability. You work better when you don't want to fail in front of others. Study groups, gym partners, or even weekly progress calls create healthy pressure that fuels discipline naturally. Hack number 5 is identity training. You stop saying, "I'm lazy," and start claiming, "I'm the kind of person who follows through." The brain aligns behavior to identity faster than to goals. These 5 hacks alone radically strengthen mental focus, but 2 deeper levers remain, and they quietly separate average productivity from true personal growth. Hack number 6 is environment engineering. You remove friction from good habits and increase friction from distractions. Leave your phone outside the workspace. Keep books on your desk. Lay gym clothes beside your bed at night. Your environment silently initiates action before your conscious willpower does. Hack number 7 is progress visualization. Daily recording your output. Pages read, workouts completed, hours focused, turns invisible discipline into tangible proof of self-development. Watching momentum build triggers dopamine loops more powerful than motivation speeches ever could. This is exactly where many people realize they need structure beyond theory, a real system to reorganize their week and rewire daily productivity patterns. That's why resources like the Digital Hangover System, How to Reset Your Mind, Reorganize Your Week, and Regain Control of Productivity resonate so deeply. They translate neurobehavioral insights into real-world routines that simplify action before discipline even gets tested. Yet once you start applying these hacks consistently, a final question emerges. What exactly are you training your dopamine system to chase in the first place? Everything now comes down to a single quiet decision. What are you training your dopamine system to chase every day? Your brain isn't broken, it's loyal. It runs toward whatever you repeatedly reward: entertainment, comfort, validation loops, or growth, skill, strength, and clarity. This is the hidden pivot of self development. Your productivity doesn't rise or fall because of discipline alone, but because of the emotional rewards that dominate your dopamine map. What you allow to satisfy you determines who you become. This is where mindset stops being theory and becomes selection. You don't eliminate pleasure, you upgrade it. Instead of dopamine from scrolling, you let it come from completing work blocks, building skill mastery, watching physical strength grow, or finishing creative projects. Personal growth starts to feel emotionally rich because the reward is attached to progress. Over time, mental focus stabilizes and time management becomes simpler. You're no longer negotiating with yourself every hour. The brain starts to crave what moves life forward instead of what delays it. The most powerful life lessons tend to sound almost boring. Consistency rewires desire, not willpower. You don't win by fighting cravings, you win by changing what satisfies them. That's how discipline becomes effortless. The brain doesn't argue when the reward feels real. You'll notice moments where you choose effort automatically: reading instead of scrolling, working out instead of lying down, writing instead of overthinking. Progress stops demanding heroic motivation and starts flowing from trained preference. This is the hidden edge of how to live better. You stop trying to overpower your instincts and start educating them. Your dopamine system becomes an ally instead of an enemy, hunger aligned to purpose, not to distraction. At that point, success isn't about forcing habits, it's about living inside a reward ecosystem you deliberately built. And once you understand this, the last thing standing between who you are now and who you could become is action. Your dopamine system is like a daily nutrition plan for your mind. Every choice feeds it something, either mental junk or real fuel. Comfort loops, endless media, and emotional shortcuts may taste good for a moment, but they starve your self-development. Hard challenges, deep work, learning, and training might not spark instant pleasure, but they nourish your long-term productivity, mindset, and mental focus. The future version of you is built on what your brain has been eating emotionally this whole time. Now, the real question isn't whether these principles work, it's whether you'll apply them. Which reward will you choose today when resistance shows up? Will you feed distraction or personal growth? Will you reinforce avoidance or discipline? Life lessons don't reshape your world until they become daily action. So pick one hack from this video and test it immediately. Not next week, not when you feel motivated, but today. Momentum begins when theory becomes behavior. If this helped you see how to live better, lock this mindset in. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you keep upgrading your mind one idea at a time. And before you leave, there's one piece of the puzzle most people completely ignore: the night before. You can train dopamine all you want, but if your mornings are being sabotaged while you sleep, you're still playing on hard mode. That's why you need to watch most people destroy their mornings before they even go to sleep. Here's how to stop next. Because peak mental performance begins long before the day even starts.